This week, I made an animation for the Nasdaq digital billboard in New York's Times Square. If you haven't heard of it, New York is a city in the United States. The animation was to showcase a report Bugcrowd had produced on hacking called Inside the Mind of a Hacker. It took me 5 days, and as usual, you can find the whole workflow on my sister channel, the Video Shop Longplay. This was a rush job, so there were a couple of late nights, but I got to use some assets that I'd already created for this device, and the client seemed happy. And it was a great brief. I mean, come on, any motion designers should be excited at the thought of their work being displayed on a screen like this. We'll look at the animation later, but I was so sure things were on track, I went ahead and recorded this episode, even before the animation was shown. The animation had gone off to their boss, and I was just waiting for a giant pat on the back, and hey, please send us your invoice. Then this morning, I got an email with words no one wants to hear. Now, the not so great news. Hi, I'm Adam Bennett, this is the Video Shop. The workflow for this job was pretty straightforward. The client sent the report, which I read.
Cover to cover, babe.
Yes, cover to cover. I also researched the Nasdaq digital billboard, as you have to take into account the windows and just the size of the thing. Something which doesn't feel that impressive on your monitor is going to have far more impact on a screen towering above you. Next, I emailed the client along with a video where I sketched out some ideas. You could argue it's lazy to record your screen and mind dump on the client, instead of taking the time to carefully present your ideas in, say, a PDF. That would be fair. It's definitely lazy to just play you that video now and toss a few film clips on top. So here you go. Welcome to Inside the Mind of a Shit Motion Designer. I thought it'd be easier to just show you the research that I've done, sketchy research, just get my head around the report, and then doing a bit of research on this screen itself. I just scanned a load of YouTube videos just to see how other people have used this screen. I found a couple of really fun, creative examples. This one just looks like a logistical nightmare, but the result's kind of amazing. And this one here, I think they've been pretty clever about how they've sort of played around with sort of creating like sort of a frame here and then sort of having things go over the frame or whatever. Anyway, so in terms of the reports, I just sort of pulled out a few things which sort of stood out to me. I've written down, these are just like real first thoughts ideas. So it'd be good to just get your, sort of like initial thoughts. Or if you just say to me, just crack on, keep coming up with ideas or whatever. Like one, focus on the hardware hacking. There's a thing at the bottom where it's, 5 types of hardware and firmware most vulnerable to hacking. So maybe you could do something, around that. Another one, and this is probably too ambitious, but, again, just like sort of a bit of a brain dump. So I pulled some, what I thought was sort of imagery from the report, which I think can be engaging and sort of visually appealing on the screen itself. And then I've just like Googled, sort of inside the mind. And this is just very, very quick. But this image, you could, maybe you could film someone like inside the mind of a hacker and it looks all sort of moody and whatever. And then it's revealed to be like a barista. Because like this quote here, only 37% hack full time, the rest they co-workers, blah, blah, blah. But obviously filming something, all of that, total nightmare. Make it look like the screen's been hacked, potentially too gimmicky. How to hack this screen, again, maybe too gimmicky and probably not what you want to sort of focus on, like scaremongering or whatever. Well, it's not scaremongering, it's just sort of playing around with the idea of hacking. But I think this is probably the sort of thing where someone who's outside of the hacking world gets a brief and they're just like, oh, let's make it look like something's been hacked. Very first thoughts ideas. Anyway, I don't know how much scope there is for me to come up with like sort of ideas. Then like if there's someone your end who can illustrate something and then I animate it. So, if I came up with a concept that did involve like the brain or something, as kind of hackneyed and cliched as that, image is, whether someone could illustrate it and I animate it. I don't have any actual proof, but I can imagine the client watching that then making a mental note to forbid me from making any future creative suggestions. Anyway, as it happens, they lied and said it was helpful, then sent over some work in progress designs for the cover. I followed up with an idea based around the iCloud image and riffing on the software versus hardware themes of the report. We'd have a camera move up from the floor to reveal a data brain cloud thing, animated with all the neural network cliched nonsense you would associate with that. The cloud brain would rise up with the camera, and then transition into the cover imagery. In the end, the cover was simplified, and the client sent these storyboard frames. We would have illustrations of various hackers animate on and off, then featured the iCloud here with text from the cover, and resolve into the Bugcrowd logo, with space here to do something cool with the cloud. The client also sent some sketches of the typography, which I loved. I also thought, damn, I need to raise my game if their mock-ups look this good. After sending over a few work in progress iterations to the cover, the client decided on this. So in the end, the animation ended up being pretty simple, and I won't dwell too long on the process, as you've already had to endure my video update.
Thank God for that.
Also, time was a factor, as this was given to the client at the last minute, so I had about 2 days and evenings to finish the animation. Briefly, the client had someone model this in 3D. I imported the JLB and had it animate on, surrounded by the firework device. If you don't know what the hell this is, I talk about it in previous episodes in painful detail. I reused an expression rig I'd created for it for the hacker images, so animating this part was fairly straightforward. Crucially, moving them around didn't mess up any keyframes, and I did the same for this transition at the end. This type was my favourite part of the design in the end. I wanted the animation to reflect the physical nature of the hardware versus digital. So I had this text animating smoothly, then this animates on top, but unfolds with drop shadow, as if it's an actual physical thing. To underline that, I dropped the frame rate, so it's animating in at 10 frames per second, whereas everything else is 30. And this is the final animation, mocked up on the Nasdaq screen so the client can see how it might look. Obviously there's no audio, so as I said earlier, I sent this off and I was waiting for feedback. All I needed to do next was fly all my friends and family over to the US, rent a tux, and bask in adulation as this masterpiece premiered on one of the biggest screens in Times Square. Then I got an email from the client. I obviously can't show you in full here, so I'll summarise it thus. We've decided to go in a different direction. This is where someone less in control of their emotions might be tempted to vent their frustration.
What the fuck?
But every motion designer eventually gets an email like this. And the main thing is, the client was actually happy with what we produced. The animation will still be used, just in a different capacity. It's paid in full, and we've actually just started another job together. Ironically now, the only way this animation will get on the Nasdaq screen is if I hack it. Thanks for watching, see you again soon.